believe in India, my fellow Indians. We have such a low expectation, low thought about ourselves that we can do it. We can do it, man. Let's have the confidence. 40% of the world economic GDP in the 17th century belonged to India. We can get there.
Hi, I'm Shoma Chaudhury. Thanks for watching Inquiry. And if you like these interviews, do press the subscribe button on the Inquiry channel and press the bell icon for notifications. Now, it's just about a year since India first went into lockdown, and there are differing assessments of where we are at on economic recovery. So today we have a very impactful speaker on the show, someone who epitomizes the spirit of entrepreneurship. He started out with 5,000 rupees in his pocket, and today he's worth an astronomical 19,000 crores. He's commonly referred to as the Warren Buffett of India, one of India's biggest stock market investors, Rakesh Jhunjhunwala. Rakesh has been very bullish on the markets and on the India story at a time of great uncertainty. And he believes that we are poised to overtake China in 20 or 30 years. But he's also a great believer in realism. So I'm going to be speaking to him about a spectrum of issues, his own personal journey, his assessment of the India story, his passion for the markets, and the psyche of success. Thank you very much for joining us, Rakesh.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for inviting me.
So, Rakesh, I wanted to start at the beginning. When you were 12 or 13, you already were very attracted to the market, but you were born to a family where your father had a more socialist mindset. And that was a time when the market wasn't really the kind of glamorous space that it is now. So what drew you to the market at such a young age? Was there any person? Was there any event? What attracted you?
See, initially my father was a bureaucrat, he was coming from income tax. But we are all Agarwals, we are basically business people. And my father, he also had interest in the stock market. And he would discuss, the market with his friends. And I would be very curious. And I used to ask him where all these prices fluctuate. And that time the market was from 12 to 2, we had the open price system of trading. And he would tell me, see, the news comes about Gwalior Rayon, or about Century, or about Gujarat State Fertilizer. And you see how the stocks fluctuate the next day. And the linkage between the news and the fluctuation in the markets, it got me really interested. And, I was a very curious child, and my father being the democratic and great father that he was, and still is, that I, used to have a constant questioning with him. And then he gave me a book called How to Read a Balance Sheet.
Right.
I read that book, and then my curiosity, became greater and greater. And then he told me that you do what you want in life. You're a very democratic father. And he said, you're not going to listen to anybody, but my advice to you is that you become a chartered accountant so that you'll have security in life. And you'll have knowledge. And I became a chartered accountant. And then I did a small note from a bank. And I thought capitalism will prevail in this country.
Sorry, capitalism?
This was 1980-81.
Right.
And I thought, you had the Cold War and you had socialism and communism and capitalism. But I thought capitalism will prevail. And if there is ever a temple of capitalism, it is the stock market. So I thought stock market will gain more and more prominence. And I loved the fluctuations. And that's how I joined the market. And I went to my dad after completing my chartered accountancy. He asked me, what do you want to do? I said, I go to the market. He said, what do you do? I said, invest. He told me, where's the money? Don't ever ask me money. If you don't do this, I do this. But he told me, I have a house, you can always live here. And you're a chartered accountant, you can always earn enough to maintain yourself. So don't be afraid. Don't forget that the word is your bond. Be fearless. And God bless you. What is the ultimate? My parents' blessings, whatever I knew, at 500 rupees in my bank account, I went to the markets. And I used to stand outside the ring, and I was not allowed inside. And if I tell anybody my father is in the income tax department, they won't talk to me. So I used to tell them my father is a cloth trader in Mumbai. And
Your father is I'm so sorry, couldn't hear.
My father is a cloth trader.
Achha.
Has a cloth shop in Mulijeka market. It's a large, garments market in India. And then it all started, and my brother was a practicing chartered accountant. He helped me raise some money from his clients. And then in the first year itself, I earned about 20-25 lakhs rupees at that time.
Wow.
And then I had 2, 3 very dry years, and then Madhu Dhanvite's budget came, and I bought a share once I saw go up on leverage, and the whole story started, and it's all been a gradual, rise.
In fact, you just mentioned Madhu Dandavati, and I found that a very interesting inflection point in your life. That probably that's when you first had your absolutely exponential growth. I believe you went from 2 crore to 20 crore overnight, and that was a budget where everyone expected the VP Singh government to still be within the socialist framework,
Right.
especially with Madhu Dandavati as the finance minister. So, and yet, you've said somewhere that your analysis was that yes, VP Singh is a Thakur, but despite his caste, he's going to be pro business, and so you bet on that budget, and you had exponential rewards. So, what signal were you reading there, Rakesh? What made you read the entire scene differently from others?
Ma'am, see, there was extreme pessimism. Everybody thought it would be a completely, socialist budget. But people forgot that the person who first really reduced income tax rates in India and abolished estate duty was VP Singh. And from his other actions also, I felt he was a true business. And he was a person who realized that by entering business, he's not going to go anywhere. And it was all humdrum talk that, if you send your child to cathedral school in Bombay, they'll impose a 50 rupees per month tax. That was a kind of talk. Now, education is a state subject. A coalition government is not going to amend the constitution to get 10 crores of revenue. So I thought it was all humdrum, the extreme pessimism is going to be a good businessman's budget. And that's where it is.
Right. So, it's interesting. Of course, people have heard you, when you make investments, millions are kind of reading your actions. So I know that you've spoken of a lot of things which you use in your sort of analytical parameters, from sort of cash flow to the opportunity in the market to the gaps to, the skill sets that people have, all of that. But interestingly, you have a great focus on people as well, Rakesh. So apart from reading Madhu Dandavate and VP Singh's psyche, you, interestingly, though Tata's has always been the big jewel in your crown, you said that even when Mr. Chandra took over, you became even more gung-ho. So what was it again? I'm interested in seeing how you read people. What was it about Mr. Chandra as a leader that attracted you?
See, although the household practice was well run, there were a lot of spots of inefficiencies. And I don't think the allocation of capital was the best, right? And it was done on a very piecemeal basis. Now, Mr. Chandra wanted to change things, but change has to come at a pace. And when I saw and I read and I met him once and I talked to some other people, see, whatever change, they had great potentiality. Tatas have the ability to, they are blessed by God. They have the ability to attract the best talent in this country. They're some of the best assets. And the change that Mr. Chandra wanted to bring was gradual but strong. And there was always also evidence of the fact that he's bringing about change which is how like a thing I form an opinion. Then time is only going to tell me whether my opinion is right. And you starting well, what I've learned in life, when change comes, it accentuates. And when change comes, it's always, when it's for the good, it's always greater than we ever. When it's downhill, it's always work in favor of that. So that's why as I consider myself, I would like to say two things. Interviewed a lot of heroines, including Priyanka Chopra. So she asked me about the market. I said the stock market is like the Kama Sutra. You have to use all senses, right?
You can.
It's like the Kama Sutra. You have to use all senses in the market, and it's all about the future. We are investing in the realms of possibilities, and we can always be right or wrong, right? So
Right.
when I read a person, I try to understand the importance of what he's doing. How is he bringing about the change? Is he using the right methods? Is he being bold enough to make commitments which he thinks he will be able to achieve? So I find Mr. Chandra one of the most savvy, fair, intelligent, well-intentioned humans who knows how to deal with people. And he's on the ground. I know he wanted to recruit somebody into the Tata group. He will SMS him that I'm N. Chandra, chairman of Tata Sons. Can I come and meet you at your place in Logan? So, this is his feet is on the ground. And his dreams are held high. So I am very, I was the earliest recognizer, I think. I'm still very good. Similarly, I think I was the first person to call Mr. Modi a distant socialist.
Right.
Because socialist is worried about the size of the cake. A distant socialist is worried about how you share the cake.
Are you calling him a distal socialist or a
Yes,
distal
I am
capitalist?
distant socialist. Because the kind of social welfare he is doing. Remember one thing, there are only two prime ministers in India who have seen adverse poverty. One is Mr. Modi and one is Lal Bahadur Shastri. And to some extent,
And Manmohan Singh also.
not abject poverty, not like the poverty theirs, right? So, he is trying to, he's not, and he's not capitalist, he's not socialist, he's realist. What has socialism brought to us? I think if the Nehru family was not born, this country would have been more prosperous today. So Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel has become prime minister. So Mr. Modi is, see, I'm not talking his social agenda, you have any views on that. But on his economic agenda, he realizes that first we have to increase the size of it. The socialist fights for a portion of the cake, not bothered with it increasing size. So he's doing all these policies to increase the size, and I can undoubtedly say that it's my personal opinion, and it's not to be right, that he has done the best in social welfare of anybody in this country, any prime minister. And people don't realize the Nal Se Jal Ka program. 40% diseases in India are waterborne. If every house has water, I mean, you don't know what it means. And the way we have got efficiency in distribution of subsidies. Anyway, it's my opinion. I could be wrong. I don't know.
No, in fact, it's great. You've opened up so many avenues of conversation, Rakesh. So I'm going to pick each of them one by one.
Please.
I'm going to come back to your childhood as well as your psyche. But since you've opened up this conversation about Mr. Modi in India, so it's very interesting. We'll come to the social welfare program, but if you were to analyze him like we spoke of VP Singh or Dandavate or Chandra, so if you were looking at him as a leader and India as a stock, which you're feeling so gung-ho about, how would you assess him as a leader in terms of risks and assets? What is your spreadsheet on him?
There is one basic difference between the BJP and other parties, which is pride in India. Pride about being Indian. That India should be a superpower, right? If you go to the Junction's original manifesto when they were formed, it was that we should become members of the Security Council. So there is a pride in India and Indianness. Not that means that we isolate ourselves, but we be pride. See, the biggest problem I find in this country is that nobody is optimistic about this. If you're not optimistic, how are you going to achieve? I want to dream with my head and high and my feet on the ground. So I believe there is a basic question of pride in India. Second is, I think he wants to leave an economic legacy. He has no family. His legacy is to be a great leader. In that, he wants to leave. He knows that, as I judge him, not that I will talk to him about it, that forget the social agenda. He will be remembered for the economic legacy. And he knows that the economic legacy cannot come until certain policies are adopted. So he is ready to face all opposition to have those policies on, right? And I feel that, I support the social agenda, you may differ, right? So the question is, I think he's a great leader. He may be one of the great leaders India has ever, in my opinion. Time will bear this out. I could be right, I could be wrong. He's well intentioned and he wants to see prosperity go down to the bottomless point. But he knows that until there is general economic prosperity, it cannot reach. There has to be general economic prosperity and the social welfare has to be distributed. And I think that's what he's taking.
So, I agree totally with the welfare agenda. And of course, it would be unfair to not look at all that was also done earlier in terms of food security and a lot of, right to education, a lot of things which were there.
Remember, right to education, just I can interrupt, right to education and food security laws don't make it. I can make any law. I can make a law that every child in India should go to Harvard. What does it mean? What does the right to education bill mean unless until it's actually implemented? I will credit the previous government for the right of information. I think that was a brilliant piece of legislation. And it has been very effective in improving government.
Right. So, I've heard you say that you feeling really good about the Nalka Jal. I agree with you. I think that's a really crucial to get drinking water and piped water into every home. Huge, huge agenda for the country. You've spoken about the
Yeah.
Aadhaar scheme, the bank accounts, the financial inclusion, digitization, the micro delivery of welfare. So all of that. But if I can just stick, we'll come back to the India story. Just if you finish analyzing Mr. Modi as a leader, you spoke of what his assets are, which is commitment, optimism, pride in India, a desire for delivery. What would you count as maybe risks about his style of leadership?
One thing also which I forgot is that although he's not in the business community, he thinks more as a businessman than most business. And he realizes the pitfalls of business, the difficulty business people feel. See, I think the risk is that he's too central to the BJP. There has to be proper succession planning. I don't see any of this.
You don't
When
see.
you see this country is in elephant. To move it is, I don't know for what reason, Shoma, you may disagree with me, that the Susan Sarandon, whoever that character is, are educating with the farmers. What do they know about the business? What do they know about the realities? 1 lakh crore of rice in wheat, you are producing which is rotting in the godowns. You don't want, today, at 2 rupees a kilo, there is no buyer of potatoes in Bengal. And in Bombay, I can get potatoes for 40 rupees. The farm laws are meant to narrow that difference. And you see that the farmer gets a better return and the consumer gets a lower price. And you just want to oppose it for nothing. And all kind of people, Sunil Gavaskar has given a beautiful interview. They asked him, "You are not anti-BCCI." He said, "In this country, if you're not anti-establishment, either they call you a chamcha or they call you something else." So I don't know why I sympathize with the farmers, that they are in the cold but I don't sympathize with the rains. And I don't understand, I could be wrong. Therefore, we in this country are facing opposition for no reason. There are vested interests everywhere. And in countering those vested interests, people are going to make mistakes. If Mr. Modi does 10 things, 8 may be right, 2 may not be right. But that's part of human life.
So it's interesting. we are moving. I mean, but partly, like you said at the beginning, and I want to examine that as well. That news and the markets and the economy are so interlinked. So it's interesting to hear your analysis of this. But just sticking with the leadership issue a little bit longer, that just now when you were speaking of Mr. Chandra, you said that he's bringing change with a great degree of commitment, but he moves on it slowly, puts people in place. So when you're analyzing Mr. Modi's leadership, say whether with demonetization, you mentioned right to information right now. The BBC has just done a story with all right to information, by putting on RTI applications, that how much of discussion was there with key stakeholders within government, different ministries, people who would have to implement it. How much discussion was there before the lockdown decision? Now, both those, there was absolutely no discussion before they were taken. So do you think there's risk in unilateral leadership where Mr. Modi is concerned?
You're referring to the farm laws?
No, I'm actually even the farm loans. But I was talking about demonetization and the lockdown.
No, I think the lockdown was absolutely right. We can have no opinion on the demonetization, did not work out. But I can show you a video of 2005 of Mr. Pawar saying that they will amend the APC Act and the farm laws within a year. There's a discussion going on for the last 30 years. What discussion do you want now? The farm laws have been discussed for 30 years. The Congress party, the NCP, every party has said in power we want to amend the law and allow the farmers the freedom. Today, when potatoes rot in Bengal and onions rot in Nasik, I could not buy them and keep them because there is hoarding, and there they can't sell it for 2 rupees and it goes all rotten. Today, allowing people to store them. So, what discussion you want in the farm laws? They discussed the very farm laws for the last 21 years, and every party has endorsed them. Then it is like India, keep discussing. What I find, I respect Indian civil activists. We need a free press, we need a free judiciary, we need civil activists. But just opposing something for the sake of opposition, ma'am, I don't agree. The realities are too apparent for me to even give a thought to address.
So, we'll move away because this will pull us deeper and deeper into a socio-political conversation. But just on the farm laws, Rakesh, because we're talking about the health of the country, and we're talking 600 million people when we talk agriculture. So it's a huge, huge economic sector that I think you're totally right. Everyone across the political spectrum was agreed that certain reforms had to happen in the farm sector, and certainly on the Essential Commodities Act needed to go. But I think what there was trouble in was the design, in the details, in some of the implementational details. And that's where discussion in a democracy becomes important, or parliamentary committees become important.
Parliament has a procedure, it has to be followed. Everyone has a right to speak in Parliament. So why did he not speak there? When the law was being passed, why did he not speak? You should have told the speaker, it's a parliamentary procedure. The BJP wanted to have a trust vote in Karnataka in 15 days. The Supreme Court ordered in 3 days. It was done. So who says procedure was not followed? You please give a specific instance. You're discussing the last 21 years. It's passed in Parliament. Then you said there was no discussion. You have a right to ask for discussion, but you don't have the right for your opinion to prevail. The parliamentary procedure has been followed.
Yeah. Well, as it so happened, it's a slower process, but in a democracy, if you move with enough stakeholders, it's
but I
more
think
effective.
After waiting for 21 years, you better move with speed, is what I say. Before the onions keep rotting and the poor farmers can't even sell the potatoes for 2 rupees. And every political party in this country is endorsed it. You want further discussion? Is this a debating society?
Yeah. As I'm saying, Rakesh, I'm very interested in knowing your views on this. I would have a more detailed conversation with you, on the fact that farmers couldn't go to court, it would have to be settled at the magistrate level, or that there are not enough farmer-producer organizations. There's genuine fear about...
He said we will put the court or the laws 18 months in advance to discuss what changes you want. Is ready to listen.
Yeah, that's fair.
But they are saying no. You have to repeal the laws, otherwise you will not discuss. So keep sitting in Haryana and Punjab on the border. Let us see what happens.
Yeah. No, I agree that discussion should have happened, and then whatever was there should have been ironed out. So I agree with you on that. Well, let me pull you back. So I do want to examine your assessment of the India story and this connection between news and the markets. But just for a moment to take you back to your personal journey, it's interesting that like when you talk about spikes in your personal wealth creation, it was from 89 to 93, you had a big spike. And then after liberalization from 93 to about 2000, your portfolio didn't expand that much. And those were the really optimistic years, markets opening up, euphoria, liberalization. What happened then? Why did you make mistakes? What happened?
And the market did not go up. And see, initially, the liberalization was treated with euphoria. But to face the liberalization, there was 160% import duty on steel. That was made 10%. Now for Tata Steel to get efficient took time. And then people had great expectations in euphoria. And if it didn't happen, it was turned to disappointment. So from 93 to 2000, market went nowhere. Then we had a slight, the tech boom and the scam, another scam, and then markets again dipped. And then 2001, I think on 17th or 18th September, the index bottomed and the index has never come back. And 2002 to 2008 was history. And then, of course, we had the 12 lingering years where markets went nowhere. And now we are on the threshold of another bull run.
So, you've said quite often that losing money doesn't make you afraid. Losing trust is a more bruising experience for you. And so in that sense, you're much more vulnerable to your relationships or to your trust in people. But first, I want to ask you about your approach to money. Has that approach that, you don't mind losing money, is that a new development now that you are wealthy enough, you have the bandwidth? Or did you have that approach from even when you had 5,000 rupees in your pocket?
So I was always a very carefree man. I do what
very
carefree person who I care for the world. right? I always had limited means. I come from middle class family. Today also when I go to a restaurant, I look at the items and I don't order so much that we waste. And I have learned a new definition of wealth. That who's a wealthy person? Who thinks, who feels that he has more than he needs. And from 19, I have a wife who is very undemanding financially. And from 1989, after the Mandu Granted budget, I have had always more than what I need. Even after I was included in the billionaires list of Forbes. I used to live in the same house that I used to live in 1976 when I went to college and university. So for me, I'm not afraid of addition in wealth or reduction in wealth. So in my assessment, at every stage of my life, even if my wealth becomes 10%, my lifestyle will not change. Nobody, and we have no social circles, right? Rich social circles. We have nothing to show off, right? I don't, I drive, after I don't drive some bureau, no, I don't have a collection of 20 cars and my wife doesn't have 25 wheels. And we have no real, use for the wealth, right? So I'm fearless that way. And even if today God takes away my wealth, but doesn't take away my mental abilities, I can still learn enough to sustain it. So that's why I am a risk taker and I'm never afraid to make a mistake. Because I'm afraid to make a mistake, I'll be paralyzed. I only wish to God that the mistakes are the ones which I can afford. So I may live to make up. So that's my approach to wealth. And now my approach to wealth is that, you know, God, you are the giver of wealth. Give me the power to give. Mother Teresa has said, give until it works. So I say, God, you are the giver, and I realized that this wealth has a social purpose. God has been kind. The giver of wealth is God. And all this success is transient and temporary. So
So,
yeah.
no, sorry, complete your thought.
So that's what I feel that the greatest part of I set up three children's trust for my three children. And truly speaking, if given a choice, I would like to give away, apart from what I'm doing. That I'm not decided to do today. So others, what is wealth? And I do the markets because I enjoy markets. They are my passion, they are my life. And it's very interesting because, R.K. Lakshman had made a caption. It is a difference of opinion which makes the market interesting. So every day I want to know whether my opinion is right or not. And I go by my opinion, not by anybody's opinion. And if I earn money, I'm right. If I lose money, I'm right. I accept it with all humility. I don't blame the market. I don't blame money. So that's what my outlook in life, what markets and money is. Money also, wealth also has a purpose.
So, you just said that now you feel wealth has a great social purpose. You're, of course, one of the co-founders of the Ashoka University. In what other areas do you want to funnel your wealth? And are you happy to talk about philanthropy that you're doing?
I'm not doing so much as I should do. Right? The kind of wealth God has given me, I'm very conducive the charity I do. But there are 9, 10 areas which I've identified.
Sorry?
There are 9, 10 areas which I've identified. One is prisoner rehabilitation.
I'm so sorry, Rakesh. I'm having a bit of trouble hearing you very clearly.
Looking at prisoner rehabilitation.
Oh, wow.
Then I'm looking at, these children who have a hole in the heart. Then I want to, you can apply Ayurveda for cancer cure. Then I'm looking at putting a sports academy. I support an organization called Agastya. They take science to the children in India, to the villages. That's doing very well. So many causes. I want to look at eco-conservatism. So there are so many causes, causes are, I want to get this cataract eye operations done. They built a hospital in Panvel now. We'll be doing 15,000 free operations. But I want to devote at least 20% of my time for doing pure charitable work. And in the sense, I'm not going to go to the field and work, but I'm going to try and create an organization, have people choose them, review them, and run them. I have large ambitions, man. There, I hope God give me the power to give, and gives me the power to run it.
So, do you have any sort of figure in mind in terms of how much percentage of your wealth you want to give away?
25%.
25%?
In my life.
Wow. That's amazing. And that's like a really hopeful trend now in India, that so many first generation wealthy people are giving that giving pledge.
And because I don't have any children, I don't have any industry to give my children, to which I should necessarily own. And I don't think the happiness of my children is in the quantum of wealth. If they meet the, I want them to do what they enjoy. I want them, wealth, earning wealth is not necessarily enjoyment of a lot of, including my daughter. So I don't want them, I'm not going to judge them. I'm not here with the amount of quantum of wealth. I'm going to judge them by how good citizens they are. And I want to give them the freedom. I don't want to achieve them, me through them. I'm an absolute liberal at heart. I want them, I only hope that they have their mother's nature, my brains, education, integrity, independence, and the power to do. And I have three wishes for them. No smoking, no drugs, no same-sex. I have wishes. But I will accept them for what they are. Because my father always say, कि तू वही है मैंने तुझे जो बनाया.
Sorry, वो तू ही है?
तू वही है जो मैंने तुझे बनाया. मैंने और तेरी मम्मी ने बनाया. My father used to say, you are what I and your mother made. So they are what I and Rekha made.
So, Rakesh, if you were to just move away to the markets a little bit, and then I want to come to the India story and discuss your analysis of that. But in the markets, you've put your money where your mouth is, because you've been saying that you're feeling very gung-ho about India. You think it's on the correct path, and you've got the most leveraged that you've ever been, is what you've been saying. But within that, it's interesting that you said that you don't like investing in startups, and you've sort of burnt your fingers there. So if this pool of successful people are to expand, startups do need money. They do need that kind of encouragement. So what is your hesitation in backing startups?
Ma'am, I'm a lazy character. For backing startups, I need an entire, organization. I have great, as I judge myself, I have great strategic thought. I'm very good at judging people, but I'm a very poor administrator. At this stage of my life, I don't want to devote my time to creating a large organization which is going to, back startups. Because startups can't do only with money. You've got to guide them, train them, right? And I want to take it easy in life. I love my markets. And it's not that I have made, I think my return on my unlisted portfolio is really larger than on my listed portfolio. And today it's at least 1/3 of my wealth, my unlisted portfolio. So I've done my role in playing, and getting these starters, we only know of the success stories. We don't know of the failure stories. And I don't believe these valuations of these startups are going to last. And I reserve the right to do that. So I'm doing some private equity investment. And in fact, I'm in the process of doing 3 new investments, but not in startups. Yeah.
So when you're looking at this sort of big growth story for India, which areas do you think are going to really drive exponential growth? Because we know, big manufacturing is not what's creating employment. Some of the traditional areas of where the boom was, those aren't what's creating it. Technology might create a lot of robotization and AI, so there's further displacement of jobs. We're already looking at very, very high unemployment, 45-year high even before the pandemic hit. If I don't know if you respect the Pew's report, but they said that after the pandemic, from even the middle class has reduced by 32 million people, so those who were earning $10 to $20 has reduced by 32 million. Labor participation is down to 41%. So where does your optimism stem from?
Ma'am, सब दर्दों की एक ही दवा.
Sorry?
All pain has got only one medicine, growth. If growth comes in this, you are talking now, and I don't know what report you're referring to, like that Akhilesh Singh Yadav's father, who banned all computers in the UP. So
I'm saying, of course, technology needs to come, but I was asking you how you analyze this tension between the need for employment and broad basing prosperity and the markets, which seem to be divorced from the rest of India.
No, but there is going to be a lot of employment created in India in manufacturing. That's what I'm saying. A lot of manufacturing is going to be created in India with the PLI scheme and without the PLI scheme. If you create ease of doing business in India, India is one of large exporter of robotics. So if we create employment, if we create growth, and we create ease of laws, there's going to be a lot of manufacturing in India. The biggest, I told Mr. Naini, I want to write an article. Believe in India, my fellow Indians. We have such a low expectation, low thought about ourselves that we can do it. We can do it, man. Let's have the confidence. 40% of the world economic GDP in the 17th century belonged to India. We can get there. And when I look at societies, what is built societies is skills, democracy, entrepreneurship, which is present in an unimaginable manner. We never stole the technology to make the atom bomb. We never sold it to anyone. We are some of the most skilled doctors, engineers, professionals in the world. It's demonstrated by the success of Indians everywhere in the world. The genes are Indian. What they didn't have in India and what they got abroad is a platform. It's my judgment there will be this platform which was available abroad in India. Recognize it and tap into it. Instead of being pessimist. कि हमारे देश में क्यों नहीं सकता था 10 साल पहले मेरे कोई हेल्प को पासपोर्ट नहीं मिल सकता था पासपोर्ट के लिए 9 महीने लगते थे अब 1 महीने में 15 दिन में पासपोर्ट मिलता है हर मजदूर हर जिसके पास आधार कार्ड है उसको पासपोर्ट मिलता है दिस कंट्री कैन चेंज लेट्स बिलीव इन अस वी आर लार्ज वी आर एन एलिफेंट वी आर डेमोक्रेटिक एंड आई डोंट ग्रज इट slows us down but it makes it sure. Unlike most Indians, I am far more optimistic and my concept of future India is far different from what others are. And I reserve the right to do that.
No, and your optimism is infectious, and I think definitely something everyone wants to participate in, Rakesh. So that brings us to this thin line between optimism and realism, and also in a democracy, Rakesh, it's when you point out what is missing, what needs to be fixed, what is the lacunae, that attention is drawn to that and one needs to fix it. Do you think today we're on that slightly slippery, dangerous slope of narrative management? You know, that the moment you raise any doubts or you raise any gaps, then, you know, you're called anti-national or you're seen as not loving India or being pessimistic. So do you think one is on that?
I think Susan Sandon is anti-national. Without understanding the farm laws, you want to criticize them. See, we are a democracy. I've not read much history, but my sense of history tells me that in a democracy, ultimately, what is good for the people happens. Right? So we have a free press, we have a free judiciary. Right? Nobody's stopping you, nobody's stopping anything you. They are opposed to the government, they are broadcasting what's wrong. Just because they have violated some laws and action is taken doesn't mean that anybody is being vengeful. So just because anybody takes action against anybody, you are vengeful, you are anti-national. So therefore the question is that without examining the facts, right, it's a democracy. In Karnataka, the BJP lost the government. Because the Supreme Court said the floor, test has to be on the floor of the Assembly. So therefore, and I don't say that because my views are that capitalism and realism should prevail, I'm right. But time will bear us out. And time has blown us out in 70 years. I think we had not done the economic policy of 1950s, we would have had nil poverty in India. In my eyes. And I'm an Indian, I have a right
to... now I'm using the, host's prerogative just to have a little conversation with you on that. It's interesting that now people look back and, curse India for those first few decades. But don't you think, Rakesh, analyzing it, that it was good that we had a sort of, at that point, a socialist and a mixed economy right through, because many countries that went straight from colonialism into straightaway capitalism have ended up becoming banana republics. All of Africa has had that very traumatic transition.
I should interrupt here that if you look at the Commonwealth, India is the only country in the Commonwealth which, except for those 2 years, 75 to 77, had uninterrupted democracy. And we are the largest. We were the jewel in the crown. You go to any country, Pakistan, Malaysia, Bangladesh, Kenya, any country which got freedom, they have not been able to have those civil governments. They have not been able to have democratic governments. Just because the majority of Indians don't agree with the view of some elitist people That doesn't mean the government is illegitimate. There's free and fair elections.
Yeah, so I was just going back to saying that a lot of very strong foundations of democracy were laid at that time, which may not have happened if he had moved immediately to
Maybe,
capitalism.
but you could have democracy with capitalism also. What you wanted is you should have an honest leader like development who would have promoted capitalism without crony capitalism.
So, Rakesh, because you've been so gung-ho about the India story, let me interrogate that a little bit more while laying out that I am, like you, very, very proud of this country for a gazillion reasons. When you ask questions, it's not to doubt the strength of India. But when you're saying that India will take over China in 25, 30 years, or that, even
I'm not saying take over, we'll overtake.
overtake.
We'll
Yeah,
have capital
sorry.
income to be quite like Chinese. And I'm not saying, man, we are going to grow from tomorrow. I said this year we will grow 12%, 11%, whatever World Bank is saying, everybody is saying. The year after that we'll start at 6. Then we'll go at 7. Then we'll go at 8. Double digit growth is 5 years away. I'm not saying it's going to happen today. And then I'm saying, once having changed the system and made it business friendly with good laws and laws which are actually implemented, then the kind of energies you will unleash of this. I told a group of NRIs that what did you get in America? You got the platform, no? I see that platform coming in India. We will have a startup mechanism or a technological, embroidery mechanism as good as any in the world in the next. And we'll have tons and tons of capital pouring in.
But Rakesh, is there one big distinction in the way democracy has evolved in America and India? Is that their entrepreneurs, companies are not in constant fear or proximity to government, whereas in India,
Then I cannot agree with you. Tatas are not in fear of the government. Those who don't know, my friend has set up a 2 lakh crore market cap company called DMart. He's not in fear of the government, but he follows the law. Those who follow the law are not afraid. Those who don't follow the law are afraid. And somebody crooks are put in jail, businessmen, and then you sympathize with them. And then you say, you say that we are afraid of the government. So if you do such acts, you better be afraid. Tatas are not afraid. Indigo is not afraid. DMart is not afraid. So if you follow the law, what's your problem? My friend is SSC pass. He's created a 2 lakh crore company. He's not fearful of the government. He follows the law. So it's when you act like a crook and you want money in Swiss bank accounts and you want bogus purchases and bogus sales, that's why we need to be afraid. You follow the law, pay your taxes. My father always used to say, don't be afraid of anything in life except your deeds.
Sorry, don't be afraid of anything in life except
your own deeds. So I want to ask the deed of businessmen for not following the law. पहले क्या था चलेगा दिल्ली में पैसा दे देंगे ट्रांसफर करा देंगे कौन हमको कुछ पूछ सकता है हमारे पास पैसा है हमको कौन छू सकता है अब वो सब जमाने गए So I mean I cannot agree with what you say and we can agree to disagree.
No, I agree that I think this sense that better governance needs to come into companies. There's no dispute over that at all. I was asking you about this sense that one has to have proximity, but you've given examples. Let me ask you about while there's a sense that corruption has lessened, there's also concern still about crony capitalism. One of the reasons you're so gung-ho about India, Rakesh, is that you feel crony capitalism has come down.
The largest market cap company in India are Tatas.
Sorry, the largest market cap?
The largest group of market cap in India is Tatas. Now, if you tell me Tatas are doing crony capitalism, you can tell me. I'm not going to believe you.
No, not.
You are saying in the farmers' irrigation that these laws are made for the Ambanis and Adanis. You think it's made for them? You assume anything. Are they in the agricultural field? Are they going to procure from farmers? Already I have so many in Bombay, there are so many organizations who are buying vegetables and food directly from farmers and giving it to the consumer. Are they Ambani? Are they Tatas? Are they Adani? Are they DMart? So it's for everybody. So you go on assuming any crony capitalism It doesn't stick.
Well, there, Rakesh, as a true journalist, then I have to ask you a question, which is that we have a company. I'm first giving you the profile of the company.
Is Bloomberg quit?
Sorry?
Is it Bloomberg quit?
Sorry, I'm so sorry. It's a bit.
Is it Bloomberg quit?
No, it's not Bloomberg Quint. But the question I was going to ask you is that this is a company that's been listed in 2018. Today, in 2 years' time, it's valued at 1 trillion. You know, it's had a growth of 1,250%. It has only 20% of its projects operational. You know, its PE is minus 7,715 when the.
Renew Power? It's Renew Power?
Sorry?
Is it Renew Power?
It's Adani Green, right?
Right. Right.
So, do you feel that the company's fundamentals are strong enough to?
It is not for us to judge it. No Indian institutions have bought Adani Group. It's for the investors. If you say Tesla's market cap is 600 billion, then you say US government is in collaboration with. So no Indian institutions have bought those shares as far as I know. It's for investors. They're paying 600 billion for Tesla. Renew Power, you look at its profits. It's worth, its market cap is in a SPAC. His market cap is of 5 billion. So just because Adani has got market cap doesn't mean government is collaborating. And he has won what he has won against competitive bidding.
Well, he won the solar project, and then the thing is that there is anxiety right now, Rakesh. Do you think it's fair that when he gets all the airport projects, or there's just exponential growth of just one or two business houses, does that not?
DMart is 2 lakh crore market cap in 3 years. So you say it's done by the government. You can assume anything.
Let me put it to you.
But
Would you be concerned?
I want to.
Would you analyzing? That's why I wasn't naming it, because I know you never give specific information on companies. But let's assume this is. Would you, looking at the fundamentals of a company like that, invest in that company?
I don't want to invest. That's not my choice. I've never invested in Reliance. I've never invested in any Adani group company. There's so many groups I've not invested. There's so many groups in Ludhiana are doing very well. I don't invest. So that doesn't mean anything. I am saying, how is the government of India responsible for the market? Is LIC buying those shares? Is government controlled institutions buying those shares? And if LIC has bought or not, I don't know. Are they doing it on their own? Do they have a note why they are buying it? So the question is, just because someone has grown, you will assume that in collaboration with government, I can. And the airports have been bid by fair and free bidding. I have invested in a company with bid. They are not complaining. They lost out the bids. They won some, they lost some.
So Rakesh, when I look, I know that our audience and the larger audience that will watch this will of course be interested in knowing your decisions in terms of where you are investing. But I've watched a lot of interviews. Those, your rationale for all of that is already there. So I'm not going to take you into your portfolio. But I was very interested that one of the other new areas that you are repeatedly saying that you're very gung-ho about are the public sector banks. Now, Mr. Shaktikant Das himself has said that the NPAs have gone up to 13.5% in September of last year and is likely to go up even further. So why are you feeling so gung-ho and positive about the banking sector? What are the signals you're reading?
So, let me talk about the banking sector in Chennai. We have had a credit cycle. Now, we had a credit cycle in which we had a lot of NPAs. Now, you see, any society credit cycles don't occur. At least there is a 2-decade gap, one and a half to 2 decades gap before another credit cycle, occurs. Now, this is mainly loans given between 2010 and 2013. And these are loans there were many integrity issues there, and many unviable projects were funded, which is no longer the case. Now, in India, the credit growth was lower in the last 2-3 years. But now when you have growth, you are going to have credit growth at least 1.5 times nominal. So if nominal GDP growth next year 17%, I think credit growth will not be less than 2%. So the picture is going to turn topsy. That instead of banks having a lot of liquidity, and don't forget one thing, that there is 1,10,000 lakh crores of credit, and there's only 6,000 crores of liquidity. So all this money is going to get absorbed. Banks are going to get, pricing power. And The people who can extend loans are the people who can gather deposits. And the public sector banks have got the best deposit gathering machines and faith for people. Third thing is that they have also adopted it.
They have also
Adopted technology. Today, most of the nationalized banks, I can open, and SBI is one of the most efficient users of technology of any bank in this country. Right? Second thing is, see, if you look at HDFC Bank, ICICI Bank, the good private sector banks, their cost to income ratios are 43, 42, 41%. Banks in public sector banks are at 54, 55%. That is good. There's no scope to reduce that 42, but that 55 is going to come to 46. So there's going to be money, growth for demand for money. The public sector banks can garner deposits. They will get pricing power, so the NIMs will go up, right? And ma'am, they are well provided for the debtors. They are 13% of which 11 is provided. They are over provided. Now, if this Jindal steel transaction is done about Bhushan, so public sector banks will get back 20,000 crores, which is 100% provided. And they are the people, and there is a changed attitude in the public sector banks. And don't worry, don't forget we are reduced from 27 banks to 12, and we are going to go to 5. So there's going to be more efficiency. That's why I'm bullish. You can't have growth without credit growth. And you can't have credit without deposits. So they get pricing power, their cost, their expenses to income will go down. They are hopelessly valued. You know, one thing, Canara Bank's loan book is as big as ICICI Bank. ICICI Bank's market cap in lakh of crores and very Canara Bank is 35,000 crores. Look at the disparity in valuation.
So Canara Bank, you actually have investments in
I'm
that.
talking about, I have an investment in Canara Bank.
Yep.
But I'm telling you, this is what I feel. These are my reasons. And then when the privatization comes through, there will be a time before the efficiency, then these banks will become with passage of time as good as any private sector. That will take time. So look at State Bank, is valued at billions of dollars today. They are doing more transactions through their digital means than any bank in India, and doing it as efficiently. HDFC Bank's technology breaks through. SBI doesn't.
So are you telling me?
I just want to make sure. See, it's very difficult to accept change and visualize that things will be different than what they are. But I have seen when change comes, just as in Mr. Chandra's case, you have an opinion, then it becomes accurate. And it catches speed. So when I see the difference in valuation, and I see the opportunity, and I see the change, see, it's not easy for the human mind to accept what's not popular. But it's not profitable to invest in stock markets in what is popular. It is profitable to invest in what is unpopular if you feel change will come. Is what I have learned. And I can't be wrong in this.
There's another sort of throwaway line actually you've given somewhere where you said the stocks which are really being battered now are the ones that are going to do very well. That really caught my attention. Did you mean entire sectors or did you mean particular companies? Did you mean hospitality and,
But telco available at a 30,000 crore market cap with 3 lakh in sales.
Sorry?
3 lakh crore in sales was Tata Motors. And 30,000 rupees was the market cap. Ma'am, this is the house of Tatas. Right? They are the most battered stocks. So I bought a lot of telco. I made the most profitable, one of the largest and most profitable investment in my life. I bought it 100 to it's 300 in a year, in 9 months. So the battered, because I didn't share the optimism. I didn't share the pessimism. One of the reasons I could make a lot of money is I didn't share people's pessimism in me. In fact, Uday could have told me to interact with his board so you can make them more positive. I was positive right from mid-April. Because I saw this is a bloody flu, not a bloody cancer. It'll come and go. And everybody is pricing companies on what it will earn in the next 5 months. I've invested in Titan. Suppose they don't earn in 2020, 21. Means they won't earn in 21, 22. You are pricing stocks as if they're gone. You're going to close down. So that is the reason why I still feel the most battered stocks are going to be the best. And the NPAs are there, but they are provided for, madam. If I provide for an asset 100%, if I sell it, don't sell it, how does it matter? What people are not realizing, they are over provided. And I'm telling you, Canada Bank is 35,000 and I say the bank is in lakhs of crores.
Right.
And I can tell you today the books after the provision of Canada Bank is as good as ICICI Bank. And I'm a shareholder of both, let me tell you.
You know, when we were talking about the markets as well as why you're gung-ho about India, you said freedom, democracy, and you know, you yourself have often said, and you said right now, that you're an absolute liberal, you know, in social terms, whether what people eat, what they wear, their love, their sexual preferences, you know, their religion, that you are a complete liberal. Do you feel, so we've talked about the economic agenda of the government, and you said you feel very gung-ho about that. Do you feel concerned about the social agenda of the government? And again, I know that you know you feel strongly about conversion. Most people, I would agree with you. There should be no mass conversion, whether from Islam, Christianity. So leave that aside. But overall, this intrusion into our personal lives, are you worried about it?
They are not intruding into my life. And they are not intruding into the life of my friends. And the people I know. I agree with the social agenda, not 100%, but surely 90%. I don't agree with you on that. I don't agree with the fact that on Valentine's Day, we should not have Valentine's Day. But I agree with Article 370. I agree with the Mandir. I agree with the fact that we must take pride to be Indians. We must believe in ourselves. So I don't agree with their social agenda 100%. For my social agenda, I am a BJP supporter, right? But I agree with 90%. I don't agree with love jihad. I don't agree with giving people lectures that you cannot have Valentine days and all that. And we have to be tolerant. And some part I agree, some part I don't agree.
So, you know, just to ask you about the freedom factor, because you know you've spoken even in the political and economic reality of India versus China. You said a big strength of ours is our freedom, our democracy. So, are you concerned when, say, international agencies downgrade us, or internally yourself worry you?
We should be more worried about the fact that every week somebody in a gun goes in America and kills people in malls and in schools. I'm
Yeah,
more worried about I'm more worried about that, but I don't see any bloody elitist Indian talk about it. Why? Is it a safe country? What have they done to the blacks? And why do they comment on us? First, search your own house. What are you doing to the blacks? People in the society have come with a gun and kill somebody every week. No bloody elitist Indian talks about it. Just because they are well, we should listen to them. What is the credibility? Just because they wear $5,000 suits and they have $1 million salary, we should listen to them. We should surely examine ourselves. But I have not seen any Indian. I feel unsafe to send my daughter. We should examine our house and character. But we don't want comments and we don't want guidance from them. So, and we are a democracy. There is nobody who can destroy this.
No, personally speaking, I was asking you for your opinion. Personally speaking, I'm a huge critic of American foreign policy, their gun rights, all of that. So that, you know, again, I'm saying it's sad when the moment we even pose a question that it becomes completely binary or it becomes polarized. It's not. I'm seeking your opinion.
Telka is still running. Anything is still running. Bloomberg Quint is still running. So what is there? There is freedom of press. Why are you afraid? Right? So therefore the question is, I am not saying that we should not examine ourselves, our policies. But we don't want to be guided by this. They are what they say is not the gospel. And there is no corruption in America. There is no corruption. What is lobbying? There is official corruption. So therefore all societies have problems. We need to work to improve them. But why only identify India?
No, like I said, I wanted your analysis of it. So
we need to examine ourselves, and I'm quite confident, quite sure that India is very much democratic, and nothing can destroy it.
So let me just circle back to the first thing you said about markets and news, which your father told you and which you noticed, that news shifts markets, they very strongly interlinked. So because you're a lover of capitalism, you're a lover of the markets, do you feel that there's, again, I'm asking you for your opinion, that do you feel that there's ground for anxiety when very large corporates begin to own news media in the country? Because like I asked you, then narratives start to be managed, so literally the markets and the news are interlinked, because you won't speak of certain news if there's unrest, if there's deprivation, if there's protest. The news gets managed to a large extent by corporate interests. Is that not harming the markets, and is that not harming democracy? Would you be worried about
So
it?
I think India is a free press, right? No Times of India, no Indian Express, no listens to anybody, right? No NDTV and no Bloomberg print listens to anybody, and no Ken and all the other people, the print, they're not listening to anybody, right? So we have a free press. And I don't think there's misrepresentation of news. There's misrepresentation of news that media also is. Quality will come out. So I'm not worried on this. I'm not worried on Indian democracy. I'm not worried on the freedom of the judiciary or the press, right? And in parliament, if someone is a majority, they have a right to do what they think is right.
Thank you very, very much, Rakesh. You've said one thing quite often, which is that you see things that others don't. And I think that you've given a lot of analysis, both about your personal approach to things and about the India story and the psyche of success. So thank you very much, Rakesh.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry, I don't have any anger. It's only the assertion of my conviction. I'm sorry if I have been.
No, I didn't experience it as anger. So that's great.